Welcome back to the McCoy Leadership Podcast, elevating your impact through valuable insights and conversations about leadership. Welcome back to another episode of the McCoy Leadership Podcast, and today we are thrilled to have Giorgio Natili with us. And he's been a tech leader, an author, an advocate for fearless leadership. And I found out right before the interview, he became a manager because he was surrounded by horrible managers. And he might share a little bit of that story. And I'm sure that he was perfect at being a manager right out of the gate. But Giorgio, thank you so much for joining us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your past 20 years of experience and how did you end up where you are today?
Absolutely, Amos. And thank you so much for having me in your show. I'm very excited to be here. So, the easy part, I'm Giorgio Natili. Yes, I'm confirming my name. And I have been in tech since more than 20 years. That is putting also an age on me, and I don't mind. In these past 20 plus years, what drew me and what kept me excited about this work is, first of all, the fast-paced working environment, the very informal, results-oriented, less political than many other field environment, and the exciting opportunity that I had in my life. I was able to work for Akamai Technologies, maintaining security for 33% of the internet backbone. Then I moved to Amazon when I fulfilled my career goals, my career dream of working on a Kindle rendering engine and spreading knowledge also in languages that were not supported before my time, like Indic, Arabic, vertical Japanese, Chinese. And then I had the opportunity to dance in between payments and fintech for a few years with Amazon Payments and with Capital One. Capital One was fascinating because it was the time where AI was still not at the very beginning, but not yet the thing that it is now. So we're more focused on NLP and machine learning. And I was able to build several customer-facing experience based on NLP and machine learning. This excitement about fintech, data privacy brought me to Firefox, to Mozilla, where I was in charge of several components of the browser, one of the most privacy-oriented browser. And then brought me to where I am now. I'm managing a team that is building the concept of confidential AI, where where we are reinventing the concept of data privacy and data encryption in complex AI workflows. All of this without losing my passion for teaching, without losing my passion for taking care of my friends, mentoring, and of course my family. And without missing an opportunity to speak with someone about my vision, my perspective about management, and my strong belief that perfection doesn't exist, but excellence does exist. And we should aim for excellence in everything we do.
I love that. So perfection doesn't exist, but excellence does. I think that right there at the beginning is probably, I think, a very worthy quote of everybody to kind of reflect on. So when you started out, you mentioned that you became a manager because you were surrounded by horrible managers. So I take it you weren't maybe perfect at being a manager right out of the gate.
Well, I don't know if I was perfect. What I can tell you is that my career journey is pretty unique. I moved from Italy into the US, where in Italy I was owning a company that reached a total of 25 employees, serving important brands like Giorgio, Cartier, Fay, many fashion brands, into a senior leadership, senior engineering role in the US. And after 2 years, I found myself being a manager. My problem with the management that I observed at the beginning of my career was that was not pushing for excellence, navigating in between the ask of the senior leadership and the reality in such a way that was not honest, was not neither saying the truth, to the people that they were managing. And by truth, I mean expectations, I mean a reality of the situation of a company, and so on. And at the same time, was hiding completely what was happening in the team to the leadership, to the point that at my first company, I got hired, and again, they paid all my relocation, all my immigration to a company that was in bankruptcy. And I learned that it was in bankruptcy on my second week of work. I don't think it was very honest and a very good start. And at the same time, the company was big enough, but the engineering team was small enough, less than 400 people, to give me a chance to speak a couple of times with the CTO. And the CTO was absolutely not aware of several frustration and things that were going on the field with the engineers. And at some point, when I was dancing in between the line, because it was a new country, a new working culture, I was kind of trying to understand what I really can do. They told me, well, we hired you to be exactly what you are. I said, are you sure? Yes, we are. And I've been myself. The team changed. The team solved significant problems. The company went out of the bankruptcy. And the CTO at some point gave some small cards, just a thank you card, to recognize people. And I was one of the 4 or 5 that get this recognition. And I was in since after 8-9 months. And I was looking at a team that was looking at me more than to the managers. And I started to realize that there was the need to something different also in the US. My imaginary of the US was it would be way more advanced than what we are doing in Italy, right? Better practices, better everything. And instead, I discovered that what I was doing in my company was very, very, very close to what Amazon was doing. And we're talking about 11 years ago. So I was really ahead of the curve. And in my next role, after less than 7-8 months, I found myself managing a team. And I made my rookie mistakes, but I didn't never compromise about one thing: clear expectations, straight, honest feedback, bidirectional, and respect. And that brought me to be a beloved manager by many, many people that was a part of my team, and sometimes having more frictions with stakeholders, because when you are so passionate about your people, you really tend to protect them. You think as your work family. That is a completely different concept from family. It's not the same, right? But they are your pack. And as a quote-unquote leader, that is a word that I don't believe at all should be used, but it's for the sake of less good words, let's use it. You sit on the back. If you think about a pack of wolf, the leader is always on the back. It's never in the front. And that's for me what managing a team should be, and that's why I get into management, because I observed the managers that were more interested to look good rather than to make the people that work in their team shining. There is, of course, a consequence, right? If you are the shiny star, you are the one that advances your career, and you most likely will advance very fast, but you will not last long, I promise you. Instead, if you focus on your people, on building up the diverse talent that you have with you, you will move slower, but you will be solid when you move. That is a way different concept.
So, a couple of things. One, you hit on kind of that dance between what's really happening, I will use the example of a manufacturing company. What's actually happening on the floor, where they're manufacturing the goods, as compared to what leadership knows. And how many times do you believe that is happening, where the people on the floor and the managers are trying to hide what's really happening, thinking that at some point it'll all come around and then they can report the success to the leadership at the top of the company? And then, I'll let you answer that. And then I have a secondary question to that.
I think it happens many times, but it's not to blame. We don't have to blame the frontline managers. We have to blame the company, organization, the leadership culture, and a tiny bit our society. Let me unwrap. So, our society, you will be seen as a successful person if you do well from a career standpoint, if you make money, and then what? So the two major things are this. Should be you are successful if people love to be with you, if you want to be helpful, if you are helping your community, but this is not seen as a successful story. So this bias implicitly is forcing managers to show only the shiny good parts, also to leadership. Leadership, on the other hand, is very thin from a time standpoint, so they can't absorb all the details, and they want to get only the TLDR. Now, doing a good executive summary is very complicated because you can hide a lot of things, right? And it's hard to make it concise and effective for a leadership. So you want to be compelling, concise, and convincing. These three C are super complicated, are way more complicated than people expect. And that's why the message can too much sugar-coated. A little bit is the bias of the culture, a little bit is the complexity of being concise, compelling, and convincing at the same time. But on the other hand, you don't know what you have in front of you. You don't know what is the reaction, and people is getting scared. This impacts everyone. As soon as you have a title, whatever it is, vice president of engineering, senior director, head of engineering, head of product, most of the people will be scared. So they will feel intimidated. Not everyone is fearless. I speak a lot about fearless leadership or fearless organizations, even better. There is a wonderful book about the topic. But in general, let me tell you the anecdote. I truly believe that we have to be honest and straight. When I was leaving Amazon, I asked to my last manager, hey, I'm leaving. I'm out of here in a few hours. Give me the real feedback. Tell me what I can do differently or what I'm doing that I should course correct. This manager, Ankit, told me, Giorgio, you are fearless. I say, okay, this sounds good to me, right? He said, yes, but no matter who you have in front of you, you ask the right question at the right time. And these make people very uncomfortable because they know that where you are in the room, you'll smell thousands of miles away the weakness in their thought, and you will ask the question that will make it pretty evident. Who knows you know that you do this because you want to prevent this person to make a mistake or to make an assumption that can impact the team, the company. But who doesn't know you will feel this as an attack. You can't imagine how much is true. You can't imagine how much I realized, oh, that's why they didn't invite anymore me to that director level meeting. Or that's why I was pulled only at the last minute into that conversation. Because people, not everybody, I love to be challenged. I do love to be challenged. If my team doesn't challenge me, I think that I'm in the wrong team. But not everybody like it. So these components, including the fact that not everybody is fearless, make very complicated for the leadership to really understand what is happening. There are good examples of leaders that spend time with their frontline managers or the frontline team to understand their job, and that's when you get to the reality. But it's complicated and it's not always doable.
So it's fascinating to me because early in my career, when I really had my first position within management, I was invited to meetings with the owners and leaders within the company, different meetings that happened on a weekly basis. And one day, one of the vice presidents came to me and said, the president made this comment, and the comment was, Amos is a great diagnostic doctor, but his bedside manner is not that great. And as I dug into that, what they were really saying was that when they would say, here's something we want to do, I may say that is not based in reality because these are the struggles that we have in the manufacturing floor. And here are examples. And they were uncomfortable with that because in the past, whoever had been in that position would have just said, okay, went and dealt with those problems, but I wanted them to understand those problems. The other thing that I learned as I reflected on that, because I took it I was in my early 20s and I took that very seriously. I started to now not only give them the reality, but also here are 3 solutions that will allow us to still achieve what you want to achieve, but do it in a way that makes more sense for the plant. And, it started to work better. But I remember how uncomfortable people were with me being truthful with them. And I think that just, what you just said resonated with me because I kind of went through that experience. Last question on that vein of this topic. Do you believe, so there are a lot of managers out there, a lot of managers listening that probably were promoted to become a manager because they were really good at their job. They weren't prepared, ready. And you talked about when somebody becomes a new manager, the other people being scared and maybe intimidated by that new manager coming in. But many times when somebody is promoted from being the top of their job to now being the manager, they're scared, intimidated. Do you see this when somebody is promoted from within, from being a floor level employee to becoming a manager? Do you see this problem more prevalent, or do you think they have it better than somebody coming in from the outside?
No, absolutely. The manager must come from outside. The person that is getting promoted, I'm not telling that promotion cannot happen, but think very simply. They are working effectively on a team since X number of months or years. So all the work habits, all the biases, all the strengths and weaknesses are so strongly embodied in these leaders that they will just reinforce that. Now, there might be somebody that can push back and say, yeah, Giorgio, but we have a wonderful culture in this company. We want exactly that. And that's true. That's correct. But if you don't mix with strong culture and injection of different cultures coming from outside, your culture will not evolve. And if it doesn't evolve, the risk with the speed of business that we're observing now with Gen AI and with this AI revolution is that you can become obsolete in a snap at any level. So for me, it's important mixing the two. And I'm very empathetic with the managers that get promoted from inside after a long period of time that they are in a company, because they will struggle with something more complex than what they think. Dealing with systems, dealing with products, dealing with design is complex, but it's not as complex as dealing with people. People is so unique. Each of us is so different that to really be effective with people, you need to speak 25 different languages in a single conversation.
Yes.
Or 25 different dialects. And they will face this, and they will most also likely face one other bias that is embodied in the organizational structures. That you became a manager, and therefore you are succeeding, and therefore you are leading. And this is not true. You lead by example, no matter your title, no matter your position. What it matters is what you do. If you start thinking that your career path is becoming a manager, I will succeed only if I became a manager, and then a senior manager, and then a director. No, that's wrong. You're making a lot of confusion. I have one of my mentees that I'm working with that I truly believe is a strong principal engineer and also a wonderful solution engineer, but cannot be a manager. He wants to be a manager. The cultural bias is I will be successful if I am a manager, if I am a vice president of something one day. Well, I have a vice president title. I'm telling you, the title doesn't matter at all. It's count zero. It's only needed because HR need a framework to speak about an organization. We should break it down and change it. The title doesn't help, and people that get this manager title, especially when they are from within, after maybe also longer period of time, they will be the horrible manager that I was referring to. Full of good intentions, but they will always try to accomplish whatever the leadership is asking because they see their job is still mixed, right? They take the work order and they execute to their best. Their best, usually, it's measured with a successful delivery. They will not go back and say, you know what, I will not deliver what you asked because X, Y, and Z, and this is the new plan. They will most likely keep it ongoing and maybe move or leave. I found myself a couple of times moving companies to inheriting hot potatoes that were very hot. and I don't think that this is a good fate of people. Again, it's fear, it's bias, and it's all these cultural bias that we have around us. Oh, you are successful, Giorgio. You are a vice president. No, I'm successful if I can respect people, if I can have conversation with people that I never met before and see them listening to me, challenging me, and leaving a conversation where, oh, yeah, we should get together again soon. Then I'm successful. Doesn't count in followers on LinkedIn? No. On social media? No. Count on how you look at yourself in the morning in front of your mirror. And if you know that yesterday you did something for somebody, or that you leave one sentence that can help somebody somewhere in your conversation, then you're successful.
I like that. And I've often said, I've used the fact that once you get a title, there are no magical powers that come with that. You need to still work your way through that. And the best thing I've ever seen, an owner of a company that I met years ago, and when he gave me his business card, I looked at and I knew he was the owner of the business, but when I looked at his business card, it said underneath of his name where the title would be, it said employee. And I asked him about it, and he said, look, he said, titles are so overrated. And when somebody sees that I'm the owner or CEO, all of a sudden they start treating me different. He said, so my business card says I'm employee because that's what I am. I'm there for the employees. I'm not there for me. And that has always stuck with me, that he had that. Now, you talk a good bit about taking on challenges head on. And you talk about swimming with the sharks. And I do have to mention that this is not just a little play on words that you came up with. You actually did swim with sharks, right?
Yes. Let me tell you why. So I've been passionate about windsurfing since when I was a kid, 7 years old. Actually, the beginning of my first job was quote-unquote professional windsurfer. I reached the level of being admitted to one of the World Cup in Greece in 1998. For me, was really the dream job. But of course, it doesn't pay really well the bills, right? So then for many reasons, I changed the job. But I always kept with me this passion. At some point, I quit windsurfing. And at some point, I started again windsurfing. And I discovered that one of my biggest fears was to meet a shark. So when I was windsurfing in Boa Vista or in Maui or in Fuerteventura, I had these thoughts in my brain. As soon as I was falling into the water, I was also trying to don't fall too much. When I was on vacation in Boa Vista, I decided, I deliberately asked to my guide to go somewhere and swim with the sharks. What it was, 2007? No, 2009, maybe 2010. Go 15 years back, Boa Vista, a guide, that wonderful person, but you pay cash, he has a car. That's it. There is no insurance, not the things that you can imagine. Oh, I'm going to swim with a shark in a controlled environment. No. Just a mask. We went into a bay, and he told me, yes, they're there. And I saw some fins around, and we gently and silently started to walk into the water. And at some point, when the water was half of my chest, we went in. And I can't forget that moment, because I was seeing these dark shapes moving circularly ahead of me. Maybe, I don't know, 3 meters, 4 meters, that for a shark is nothing. In a snap, they can reach you. And I was hearing only my breathing. And it was like being in the movie, right? In Jaws, and say, oh my goodness. But after being there a few minutes, they went away. They lost interest. And that was my aha moment. That is, they're there, but they're more interested into other things. Sure, shark attacks can happen, but you are not really what they are curious about. And since then, I was way less scared, to the point that I don't know why life gave me that. The same vacation, there is a picture of me windsurfing with a shark in the wave behind me. And a few months after, in Fuerteventura, I met an amaranth shark, maybe 1 meter after me, away from me. And I was standing on a board with a friend, waiting for a guest. And we're looking, hey, look, there is a shark. Like, hey, look at that puppy. Oh my God, it's so cute, right? And then I had other 2 encounters with sharks. And it was fascinating how my brain switched from being terrified to be aware and acknowledging their presence, respecting their presence, and being kind of okay. Because always, I can tell you that it's my favorite fish. I wouldn't bring them in a swimming pool and just have fun with them. But I'm way less concerned. And that was also a big lesson for me from a professional standpoint. I learned and I understood that when you are scared about something, or when you are worried about something, there is nothing better than trying to do it. Try to make it happen. Or you are worried about taking a bigger scope, create the confidence in others that you can take it, try. You'll make 20 things right and 80 wrong, but the 20 things right will make an impact. You will learn, and you will overcome your fear. It's continuously. It's the way that you have to work on everything, not being irresponsible, throwing yourself or your team or your car or your family in a bad situation. No, that's not what I mean. But if you are scared about something, it's absolutely natural. You don't have to feel bad about it. Just talk about it, and you'll find your way out of that fear.
And I over the years, I believe, not only just with fear, but I have seen as well, and maybe that is fear, but anything that you are procrastinating against. Because why do you procrastinate? For the most part, because there's some sort of fear there, or there's a feeling that maybe you have that this is not going to be fun. And even in my personal life, every time that I've just taken one of those things head on, you find out it's not nearly as bad as what you think it is. I mean, what are your thoughts on just in general, maybe what people wouldn't normally think of fear, but just procrastination, waiting to do something, putting something off that you don't think is going to be pleasurable? Does that fit into this same category?
It fit in a very similar category. You are right. When we procrastinate, it's because or we really don't like what we're going to do, or we're unsure about the outcome. That can be a success, can be a failure, can be wasting time, can be whatever. Again, try to balance. You can't procrastinate everything. You cannot take on everything, because then you have this feeling of being overwhelmed and you procrastinate the things that you feel that are less important. But you're not really sure if they're less important or less pleasant because maybe you never tried it. So it's part of the human being and our brain. It's defensive. Try to keep us as much as safe as possible. So just try to don't procrastinate. What I try to do in my early mornings is or to focus. Actually, what I do, I focus on my biggest task, but I use a simple technique, the Pomodoro technique. So I have 25 minutes focus and 5 minutes break. In the 5 minutes break, at the beginning of my time with this technique, I was just getting distracted. Now I eat my frogs. I do the things that I really don't want to do. So answer to that email, schedule that meeting, or answer to that question that is from a person that maybe you don't like fully at work, because it happens, right? You can't say I like everyone. It's impossible. So try to mix, because then you take on the thing that you don't want to do very quickly, because you want to go back to the major task that you're working on and that you like.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, kind of bringing the two things that we've talked about back together, I believe, many leaders struggle with that pressure that they feel is there to be perfect. And then we've talked about taking our challenges and our fears head on. How many times do you believe that managers are ignoring those fears or those challenges, or looking for ways to not take them on head on because they're fearful that if they do take on something like this, or they admit, and maybe that's a better question, is it okay to admit that I'm fearful of this challenge that I'm getting ready to take on? And do they need to be perfect, which we touched on at the beginning?
If you don't admit to yourself and to others that you have fears, or that you're feeling stressed or challenged by something, you will never succeed. People, at least most of the people, wants to be helpful. And if they see somebody struggling, they will help that person. There are also people that will not, but that's a separate category. If you are in a company or an organization where being vulnerable means that you get screwed from a career standpoint, from your ambition standpoint, whatever, you are in the wrong organization. There is people that like to work in that way. Like there is people that like being micromanaged and people that doesn't. Doesn't mean that one of the things is better than the other, is different. Okay? I have a strong preference. That's why I classify some of my former managers as horrible. Not all of them. I had also great managers. But getting back to your question, you can't be perfect. Perfection doesn't exist. If you don't start embracing that concept, you will ruin your life, your career. I had opportunities to work with leaders that were always looking at their perfection, on how the slide was pixel perfect. That's important. But it's the perfection that matters, or the quality of your message. It is perfection that matters, or the impact of your gestures, so what you do for the others. It's way better to tell that you are doing 20 initiatives on diversity and inclusion, or talk about a rough problem that you had and how you addressed it. That is a way less perfect story, but it's more real. I think we have enough fake perfect people around to make the real people and the real problems that they have, the real struggle, way more interesting than anything else.
Now, you just said the fake perfect, and do you believe that the generation today, or the generation that is growing up today, are they set up for success or for failure with their, I'm going to say reliance, I'm not sure that that's really the word I want to use, but their reliance on social media as their interaction with people?
Well, it depends. I do think that social media are a booster of individuals. So now with social media, everyone, almost everyone, everywhere in the world that has a strong, interesting message can bring the message out. This means that can be successful. Successful because can be helpful, because can have a good job opportunity, can interact with many. On the other hand, there is an approach to social media where every image must be pixel perfect, where every picture of you is the happy family. Sure, I love that you have an happy family, but show also yourself, the real yourself. Doesn't have to be. You don't have to bring drama everywhere, but I think that if the young generations want to be successful in their usage of social media, they should be honest and interested not in followers or in likes, but simply in the freedom that they now have to put their message on. They will have millions of followers. I don't care. They should not care. They should care about having one follower, their partner. And when they grow up, their kids, if they have kids, or their other friends and so on, it doesn't matter the number. It matters to know that there is always people over there ready to tell, hey, I like you, no matter what you do.
I think that is great advice. And I think even as adults, sometimes, the podcast that we're recording right now, as I got started and I wondered if anybody would listen, and I think I've shared, I shared ahead of the interview, but I've shared with our audience in the past that I started this not as a promotional item for myself, but as a way to get great leadership conversations out. But at the same time, I still, why am I only at 1,000 listens a month, or why can't I get more people signed up for our newsletter? And my wife recently, I shared with her, I received a message from someone that had listened to one podcast, and they said, hey, that was an amazing podcast, and I'm going to use that information today in a really important meeting that I have. And my wife pointed out that she said, well, you've met your goal. And I said, what do you mean? She said, when you started this, you said you want to make an impact on one person. And she said, you've made an impact on one person. They're going to use this information. And I think to your point, I mean, that just really is sticking with me, that it's more important as to what our impact is for the overall community that we're in, whether that be online, locally, or what have you, than it is to get 5,000, 5 million people to listen, as long as you're getting at least one or two people to listen, right?
Absolutely. It doesn't matter the number. It matters the quality. And the quality is bidirectional. The quality of the content, of course, is paramount, but the quality of the listeners is paramount as well.
So you've talked a good bit about community, and I did want to touch on, you are actively involved in some different mentorship programs, correct? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I'm working with, so first of all, I have some friends or former colleagues that became mentee that I'm following and working with them month after month through their goals, struggle, and so on. Then I work with a nonprofit that is sending me periodically veterans or members of spouse of veterans, and I help them to build their career, their learning path. And I had 3 of them in the past 18 months, and it's fascinating. And the other thing that I do that I started recently is helping out the Tacoma Community College. So not a fancy college, the Tacoma Community College, because it's full of people that I love. They are there to change their career. They have a passion. They have not the same opportunities of many others. And with them, I'm working as an advisor for the engineering faculty, and I'm running what we call the AI nights. We do Wednesday nights where I speak about AI-related topics. I go from technical, speaking about RAG, inference, agentic workflows, and to the implication on our life, our day-by-day life. The training is free. I don't charge a dime, and it's open to faculty, staff, and students, and we have a pretty good turnout. And it's one thing that I will keep doing for as long as possible, if the college keep giving me the opportunity.
That is awesome. And I have one other question I wanted to make sure that I touched on. You described DJing as a way to inspire connection and collaboration. And I'm very curious to hear a little bit more about that.
So one of my former job was event organizer, producer, and in general, public relationship manager. At that time, I was working with all the aspect of pretty important events in Rome, including the DJ selection, the music selection. So I always had this passion for music, to the point that at some point, one of the community that I launched in Italy was with music embedded into it. So there was tech talks about mobile, and in between each tech talks, there was a 20-25 minutes DJ set with fancy, nice appetizers, sometimes some drinks, and so on. Because I strongly believe that if you go to a tech event and you focus only on tech, you leave the personal component out of it, the people component. That's why music is such a connecting tissue between people, because as soon as there is not any more silence in the room, people start to talk magically. And this brought also me on the DJ console, on the DJ controller, and I do this in my spare time for events that are local, and I'm having fun, because when I see people that look at the DJ, start to nod with their head, or they start to dance a tiny bit, well, that means that they are really relaxing, opening themselves, being what they are. And that's why I believe that music is so important.
That's awesome. And there's nothing worse than going to an event that has a whole bunch of silence in it, right? So I would agree. So here at the end of every episode, we do 3 rapid fire questions. But before we get to those, where can people find you, find more out about you, as well as I believe you have a new book either coming out or just came out. Where can people find that?
The easiest way to get in touch with me is LinkedIn, especially if you are interested from a professional standpoint what I do. If you are more interested in the music, follow me on Instagram. I'm always there posting some quick reels with some music. My book will most likely be ready by the end of the year. So it's a title that is upcoming in January 2026. The title is The Imperfect Life of an Engineering Manager. As I mentioned, I don't believe in perfection. I think that excellence exists and we should aim for excellence, but the path to excellence is it's not linear, definitely not linear. So as an engineering manager, and I intentionally didn't use the word leader, as an engineering manager, you have to embrace imperfection and understand that it's through all the bumps that you encounter and solve that you will become a manager of an excellent team that is delivering something that is outstanding for the customers or for the users that are out there.
Well, that is awesome. And I will give you an invite ahead of time, January 2026. If you want to come back on, we can talk about the release of your book and maybe dive into it a little bit. So as we close with our 3 rapid fire questions, the first one really is just derived out of many conversations with leaders, business owners over the years. You often hear comments like, the new generation graduating high school don't seem to have this, or we should be teaching this, or when I was in school. And I thought, what a great opportunity to ask leaders from across the world, if you had the opportunity to have school administrators in front of you, and you had one piece of advice that you could give them of something they should include to turn out better, more well-rounded graduates out of their program, what would be that one thing?
The one thing that I would recommend is to invite more external volunteers that want to share their experience. Can be working experience, can be life experience. But that's how you compensate that concept of, oh, when I was in high school, we had that and now it's not anymore there. Well, then let's just create the opportunity for people and parents to come and share.
Awesome. Second question. Throughout your career, what has been your go-to book that you've continually went back to for good insight?
Two books, Crucial Conversations and Radical Candor. These are my two books. I go through that because curiosity can help you solve any question, also any conversation, also a conflict. And Radical Candor, challenging directly and care deeply about people, is the best way to manage your team and to deal with stakeholders and people that is around you.
Awesome. And last question is, in today's ever-changing world of technology, what is your most useful, best piece of technology that you're using currently?
Well, I definitely use a lot of GenAI. I mix multiple model. I leverage Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude, Deep Search, and all of them in a mix of online and offline to help me to do some tedious tasks, of course, like data processing, data messaging, data generation, insight generation, but also to have a soundboard to speak with, quote unquote, speak with, and leveraging multi-level prompt to get into some challenging thought that can help me to frame better a product requirement document, or to understand really what does it matter and why it's important to take a specific initiative versus another. I think that if you use GenAI as your challenger and your brainstormer, it's very fascinating what you can do. If you want to use it just to solve your problems, sure, but you will be far away from excellence, and you take the risk of becoming a little bit too lazy.
Well, awesome. Giorgio, thank you so much for joining us today. I've enjoyed the conversation. Hopefully we can get you back on when that new book comes out and we can talk about the book. But thank you again for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, and count me in for January. I will be more than happy to be again with you.
Awesome. And for our listeners, if you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to check out our past episodes. And also, we've just recently updated our page for the podcast, and you can find us on Podbean, as well as you can find us on any of the major platforms that are out there. So don't forget to follow us so you'll get alerts when we get new episodes out. Until next time, we appreciate you.